Good morning, Ron. How's everything on Hawaii Island?
Good. We went to the Halawa closing makahiki, and nine people went in. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Did they do it in the yard?
Yeah. Yeah. We
Uh-huh.
showed pictures on our website, Facebook page. About 20 of the pahao came out for the closing ceremony. It was good. Yeah.
Oh, bringing peace to the facility. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the chaplain made ties with the chaplain and the warden and the security officer. So it looks like a good connection. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for your work.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being here, fellow commissioners. We're going to start this meeting of the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission at this time, Thursday, March 13th, and it's exactly 9:00 a.m. So I call this meeting to order. Let's do a roll call real quick. Mike Town here, Ronald Ibarra here, Martha Tornay here, me here. And as I'm just checking online, I know that Judge Browning's on the continent. He may be joining us, but right now he's not here physically as the rest of us is. So commissioners, you're checking your agenda. Item number 3 is the approval of our minutes for the February 13th meeting. That's in your packet. If you take a look at it, I will take a motion. So moved to approve. Second. It's been moved by Judge Down and seconded by Judge Ibarra that we accept the meetings of the Thursday, February 13th, Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 All opposed say same, abstain. Motion's passed. Thank you so much. Item number 4 on our agenda at this time. I want to open it up for public testimony. You folks who are here have seen the agenda. We have now the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, Director Thomas Johnson's monthly updates on transition to correction and rehabilitation.
So he presents first and then you do it.
Okay, my bad. We're getting this straight. By 2026, we'll have it right. But we'll do public testimony afterward. Morning, Tommy. Thank you for being here. Floor is yours.
Oh, you're on
You're
mute.
on mute, Tommy.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry about that. I'm technically challenged on this end, as you can tell. But real quick, my Deputy Director of Administration, Melanie Martin, is sitting in for the meeting. So she'll sit in for the whole meeting. I have to leave to go to the courthouse in a few minutes. So any questions you have, just ask her. She'll write them down and I'll get them when I get back. I'll try to make it back before the meeting is done. But real quick, we received the commissioner's report on the state of reentry in Hawaii. As you guys can tell, we have a lot of challenges we have to address, in particular, quite a few shortfalls. But we thank the commission for the hard work they put into the report. And also we'll be providing our deep dive review on 1 June, most likely on the 2nd of June, because the 1st of June is a Sunday. We appreciate the work that went into it and the work that Cara did. And I think this gives us a baseline of where we are so that we can work with the commission to try to figure out where we need to be to come up with a comprehensive reentry plan to put in place and look for where the resource pukas are, and maybe next legislative session, speak to the legislature with one voice, and maybe some other stakeholders too chime in, so that we're all in agreement as to a way to move forward and the best way to move forward, and not just to address the reentry efforts, but some programmatic issues too. But I'll be talking more to Christian about that. So thanks again for the report. We appreciate it. As far as the budget goes, the two highlighted issues in the budget so far in the governor's executive budget is the $30 million to continue the planning and design for the new OCCC. That money also would cover the RFQ, RFP process and the bridging documents process. And the $4 million is in the budget for the reentry efforts. Representative Bellotti put in a second bill for the $4 million, which we testified in support of the intent, but we did ask the legislature to continue to leave the $4 million in the governor's executive budget because that's the appropriate vehicle that should move forward to get us to $4 million. Next is the projects for the animal, we are combining the animal quarantine relocation with the OCCC project into one larger project, and it should have been done initially so you'd have phase 1 and phase 2. And so the animal quarantine facility will need to move first at least to kennels before we can bring any heavy construction equipment, but we're not that far yet because we don't have the money to do any of those things yet. We just have the money in the budget to complete the planning and design and the bridging documents and RFQ process. The RFP for the pet rehabilitation project at the Women's Community Correctional Center should be posted in the next 7 days. So that's where the legislature gave us $50,000 to do like a pet rehabilitation care project. So the vendor will bring the animals in and provide veterinary care, and then we will take care of the animals and nurse them back to health. We decided to do that at Ho'okipa Cottage, which was recently remodeled and where I began my career back in 1997 as a youth corrections officer. We'll probably start with 3 animals, kittens and cats. Warden Galante is already prepping the cells we're going to use, the rooms we're going to use for that. And the inmates who are caring for the animals, that'll be their sole responsibility for those few weeks to take care of the animals. And so we're going to do kind of a lessons learned. We're going to see how the project works to determine if we're going to expand the project more than just 3 or 4 animals, to be honest with you. We want to, and then Warden Galante is also developing the criteria for the selection of the persons who are going to participate in the program. And so I'll give you more information on it as we flesh it out some more. Let's see, other than that, there are a number of bills still alive in the legislature, some of which we agree with and some of which we don't, but we are where we are with those. There are some resolutions that came to light to us yesterday that we initially missed, but I'm going to get right on it. And those have to deal with a variety of issues of bringing inmates back from the mainland, of providing trauma-informed care to staff statewide and some other issues. Other than that, that's all I have. Those are the major things on the budget and the CIP. Oh, one more thing. DHERD opened up this portal for really streamline the recruitment process for the state vacancies statewide. And so in talking to them, they got thousands of applications. As you know, we have over 700 vacancies. They received thousands of applications for different jobs throughout the different executive state agencies. We gave them a list of 8 priorities that we had, which was mainly in the medical field. They were we need psychologists. We only have 2 of 23 positions filled, licensed practical nurses, caseworkers, case managers, and some other critically short classes of work. So we're hoping to receive some applications through that portal within the next week or so to start going through, and then hopefully we can speed up the hiring process. We have started, as you know, we started filling some of our ACO positions with emergency hires to get them on the ground sooner. And most of those folks that emergency hires are waiting to go to the academy. And so as far as the academy goes, we'll be graduating a class next week. And we're going to have the first, or not the first, we're going to have a Neighbor Island Academy with 14 applicants on the Big Island starting in about a week and a half. That will be the first time we've done a Neighbor Island Academy in a long time. So what we've done was we did a cost benefit analysis. We came up with if we had 6 or more Neighbor Island applicants, then we could take the academy to them. And this way, they don't have to leave their families for 8 weeks. So we had a problem with some of the younger applicants having younger children, not wanting to leave their families for 8 weeks to come to Oahu, stay in a hotel. And so by us taking the academy to them, they're able to go home at the end of each day, and we'll fly the instructors back here on the weekend. So let's hope that first class of 14, we're going to start it up. I'll let you know as they progress along how it goes. we're hoping that'll help us retain more people to get them through the training and help us fill some of those critical neighbor island vacancies. As you know, HCCC is severely overcrowded, and we're short on staff at both Kulani and HCCC. So this class of 14 will help us fill some of those pukas. That's all I have.
I just have a quick question. You said for the cat rehab program, it's gonna be at Ho'okipa Cottage,
Yes.
but isn't that the furlough cottage?
No, that part of that cottage would be the work furlough program. So we use that cottage because we use that cottage because it's remodeled, and those are the women who are going to be transitioning out soon. So they have the most freedom, and we think that's the best place for it instead of inside the fence. Ho'okipa Cottage is right above the WCCC, as you know.
I know where it is. That's not the question. The question
Okay.
is if it's furlough cottage, but you're gonna have certain inmates dedicated to the animals, why are they doing that in the furlough cottage rather than someplace else? They should be
Well-
getting furlough cottage.
Well, we felt that it's best because that cottage, if you take a look at it, it's better suited for more movement, more freedom, instead of being inside the fence, inside the facility itself. Because remember, we have a lot of movement in the facility, and we're trying to create a calm place for the animals and the inmates to be, so they can take care of them. We recently moved all of the female detainees from OCCC over to women's. So women's is a true hybrid prison jail. So OCCC will not take any female intakes ever again. And so in order to kind of help this initiative be successful, we decided to initially put it in Ho'okipa Cottage. Now, we might change that later on, but for now, we think it's the best place because we have a bunch of movement in the facility. So we could
Okay.
reevaluate that, and I would ask the commission, when you go to the facility, stop by, take a look at it once we get it up and running.
Tommy, I have stopped by, I have seen it, I've been there more than once, I know exactly what the cottage is. My concern is by having the CAT program at Ho'okipa, you're reducing the number of people who are working in the community. And I thought that was the purpose of Ho'okipa, was furlough.
It is furlough, Martha, but we don't have enough inmates to qualify to fill all the beds at Ho'okipa that qualify classification-wise to fill all the beds that go through Ho'okipa. So we have the room there, so that's why we chose that as initial location.
Thank you, Tommy.
You're
Tommy,
welcome.
when you talked about the combining of the quarantine. All right. Excuse me. The quarantine and the OCCC planning process, is that within that 30 million as well?
The 30 million would be used for complete the planning and design, and I'll go into that in a second. And then it's also to complete the RFQ, the request for qualifications, and RFP process, and then the bridging documents that's needed as well. We've already done the EIS, we've done all those things. In the planning and design, I want to make it clear, we're not providing the developer with 100% plan. We're providing with a plan that's probably about 40%, 35 to 40% completion. And then the developer determines, okay, based on that initial partial design we give them, can they do it for the money that's allocated? And if so, what will the final facility look like? So we may have to move blocks around to come within budget, but we're going to give them that 35 to 40% design to show them what we want, where we want it, and then they need to determine if they can do it, and if so, at what cost within what's allocated out. I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure.
The question was, you said they're gonna combine what it takes to move the quarantine station.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. We don't need the quarantine station to move in order to begin the construction in a year or two. We need the kennels to be moved. That's all we need to be moved. We combined the projects because, to be perfectly frank, the animal quarantine project seemed stalled and it needs to move forward. They have to go back in and ask for funding, which was 60 million, and I believe the policymakers wanted them to reduce that down some from $60 million. But I can't speak for the chairperson of Ag. She would have to answer that question as to specifics on their portion.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Melanie. Can I just supplement Director Johnson's comments, please? So two things. For the BCRC, the recruit class on the neighbor island, we're gonna have 14. But in addition, on Oahu, we're gonna have 11 recruits. So we're gonna run those two BCRC classes concurrently. And then also the other thing I wanted to clarify was that within the budget, still within our budget is $112 to expand the trauma-informed care training we have at Windward Community College to not only sworn staff, but also non-uniform staff that are interested in becoming a medical technician trained in trauma-informed care. So thank you for letting me supplement Director's comments. Thank you, Director Johnson.
Thank you.
Melanie, appreciate that.
Anything else before I have to run off, guys? But Melanie will be here.
Well, I do have a question, Tommy. I'm
Okay.
hearing, you told us for years that the design of the new facility will be with direct supervision, and I'm hearing that you have changed your position on that to indirect supervision. Warden Shell did share with us drawings from the Indiana facility and explained how the indirect supervision would work. I asked him at that time what happened to direct supervision, and he said, oh, there'll be a rover that will go from one place to another. There's a big difference between the impact of direct versus indirect supervision. Direct supervision allows the staff to anticipate what's going to happen, work closely with the inmates. Indirect, all they do is react after something happens. It is not moving towards rehabilitative. So I'm very concerned about that. So is it true that you're looking at indirect supervision now instead of direct?
We're looking at both. So let me explain the indirect supervision first, because I think there's a misunderstanding of
No,
how we interpret it and how we're going to apply it. So we anticipate that about 620 to 640 of those incarcerated will be the sentenced misdemeanor population who will be somewhat stable. So they then would receive the indirect supervision model with ACOs in the control stations above and ACOs on the floor. The way that works is you have 5 or 6 housing units with 10 to 12 cells apiece, and you have the ACOs on the floor all the time, and you have an ACO in the control station above them handling the doors. The direct supervision model we intend to use is exactly that. More intensive direct supervision for those folks that need to have direct supervision 24/7. So we're looking at the infirmary, in the mental health module, in the disciplinary housing units that are there, and others where there are problems where we need the direct supervision, but not all of the population we need direct supervision. So I hope that answers your question.
And very clearly the difference between direct and indirect supervision. I don't need to be lectured on that. My concern is direct supervision means that the ACOs they are in the mix with the inmates and they can anticipate working in a correctional facility, when things get tense, you can feel it in your body as a worker. And you're able to help respond and prevent things from happening. When it's indirect supervision with just a rover going around, they react once the incident has happened because they're watching from above. That is what Warden Shell shared with us.
I think Warden Shell, one, I think he's mistaken in how we're going to apply indirect supervision. And two, I think he misunderstands the staffing level we're going to have. So you might have 5 housing units of 10 to 12 cells apiece, but you're going to have 2 corrections officers interacting on the floor in these units on all the shifts, except maybe first shift when you don't have as many.
Two ACOs rotating between the 5 units. Which are
Yes.
you talking about? They're
Yes, going into the units, interacting with the inmates in the units, because they have to move them to go to recreation, which is going to be on the same floor. So they're going to be interacting with the inmates. So even though it's indirect supervision, I think it's a higher level of indirect supervision. Instead of just one guy, one ACO on the floor, just walking back and forth on the 5 or 6 housing units, looking in the door, not really going in to interact. So what we propose to do is to increase the staffing and have more interaction, but not direct supervision because it's not needed with that particular population.
So it's about a minute from 9:20, Tommy. I'm gonna open it up to public testimony. Thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing, Melanie to be a part of,
Okay, and just send me any questions you guys might have. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Take care, everybody.
I'll open up the floor at this time for any public testimony on the hearing what you just heard in agenda 4. Anyone? This is for the public testimony.
Kat, raise your hand.
Hi, Kat. Morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm concerned about this because when people are put in jail, they're in sometimes the worst shape. And that really concerns me, that I think the relationship between the ACOs and the inmates has an incredible effect on how they will how they'll live there peacefully. And I worry that I know from past experience, the ACOs that were on like suicide watch were supposed to, make sure they looked into each cell and, they knew what was happening in there. And yet when they were questioned under another director, they were asked, why do you do that? And they said, oh, to press the button at the end. So they didn't really look in the cells. They just walked in the corridor and pressed the button. And that worries me because the training has to really help ACOs communicate with the inmates and to not have this separation, that they really need to work with the people inside. So that concerns me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. I'm just looking for digital hands or people wave for any more public testimony at this time. George, let me know if you see anything.
Well, Echo did put up a comment about reducing the population. Echo, that is what we have been fighting for years, that you need to reduce how many people are incarcerated. And I think that you're well aware that among the pretrial population, that has not moved. It's always been very high. And it's only through the legislature, by changing the laws, that we can, I shouldn't say only, but primarily through the legislature, that we need to reduce that population. And so I urge everybody to continue to support bills that will be on bail reform and other ways of preventing pretrialers from coming into the facility in the first place. And if they are in the facility, reducing the length of stay that they are in the facility.
Thank you, Martha. We're gonna move forward now to item number 5, legislative updates on legislative bills that are directly applicable to the Oversight Commission.
Okay, so House Bill 1002 HD1 impacts the commission directly. This bill would extend the oversight coordinator term ideally from 2 years to 4 years. Right now it's written as 3. It would also ensure that the oversight coordinator has unfettered access regardless of an investigation or not. And also one last thing that was added that we really appreciate that the House added was the current process. When the oversight coordinator term is up, the commissioners have to put out the job posting and interview anybody and everybody who's interested in that position, including the current oversight coordinator, and then send 3 names to the governor for the governor to ultimately choose. The addition that was added was that if the commission would like to reappoint the current oversight coordinator, they can send 1 name to the governor, and then the governor can either choose that oversight coordinator, or the governor can go back and say, no, I'd rather, have the list of 3, and then they'll go through the interview process again. So we really appreciate that addition. That House bill was actually just heard yesterday in the Senate. The bills have crossed over now. And so it's heard in
Yes.
PSN, thank you. Yeah.
Public safety.
Yeah, public safety. and it was passed with no amendments. And so the next
Oh, they
up,
made one amendment. What they did was change
Oh, they
the
did.
effective date
Yeah.
to being July 1st.
yeah, the effective date was updated to July 1st. So other than that, there are no amendments made. That bill, again, it's House Bill 1002, will now be going to the Judiciary Committee on the Senate side. If anybody watching today is able to submit testimony and track that bill for the Judiciary Committee, we would really, really appreciate support on either a 4 or 6 year term. The reason for that is because there's no other term that I'm aware of it, that I've been able to find within the state that's governor appointed, that's 2 years or even 3 years. They're all either 4 years or 6 years. And so we just want to be held at the same regard as other governor appointed positions. And so that's why we're asking for either the 4 or 6. So if you can submit testimony in support of that, we'd really appreciate, and hopefully JDC will make that amendment. Senate Bill 1321 was the companion. That bill, if it hasn't died yet, it's going to very shortly, which isn't uncommon. Usually one companion bill will move forward. House Bill 300 is the budget bill. We're very excited to share that the House concurred with the governor's request. And so everything that we had requested is moving forward now to the Senate. And on the Senate side, that bill will be Senate Bill 473. And so if you're interested in submitting testimony in support of our budget request, we always welcome that. You're more than welcome to do so. But that again is Senate Bill 473. And hopefully we'll make it through the Senate and we'll have a great year. So those are all of the
An
legislative.
important thing about HB 300 is in the committee report, when they list what they think are the most important things they've done, we're in that list. And so that's a very positive thing too.
We really appreciate the House's support.
Thank you for the testimonies that you folks have put in these journeys of both these bills. Any public testimony at this time? Support. Well, hearing, you want to say something, Kat?
You're
I
on
want
mute.
to, hi, I wanted to say that the solitary bill passed yesterday and now it's on its way to JDC, I think. It's on its way to JHA, the House Judiciary Committee. So we're hopeful. And then it goes to Finn.
Is it only alive in the House right now?
Pardon me?
That bill only
Yeah,
in the House?
yeah, it crossed over. It's SB 104 and it crossed over and it's got a triple referral, which is usually the kiss of death. But sometimes it pays to be kind of tenacious. And so we actually got a hearing in public safety. Now it goes to David Tarnas's committee, Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs, and then Finn. And I've already spoken to both and I continue that conversation because it's really important. And I want to thank everybody who testified. The testimony was beautiful and awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kat. Seeing no other testimonies at this time, I want to move to Christian's report. Oversight Coordinator report for the month of March.
All right, thank you. So every month we put out a Correctional System Oversight Coordinator report. This is in accordance to our law. This month, there has not been any additional deaths in custody since the last that we reported on February 5th. Anytime a death in custody occurs, we will report it immediately, regardless if it is in alignment with the specific month of the report. And so I just wanted to note that there is a death in custody noted because it happened in February, but we reported on that actually in January when it first occurred. I'm sorry, we reported in February when it first occurred. Okay, so welcoming new staff. So we had 2 new staff members start with us last month. We had Alec Jamerson, who is our jail oversight specialist, and also Kimmy Takata, who is our reentry oversight specialist. They are doing a fantastic job onboarding, learning all of the things. We're currently taking them throughout the facilities so they can get to know the staff, the people in custody. And I am thrilled to have more help on this team. And so if anybody would like to meet our new team, please reach out. I know they would love to sit and talk story and get to know you all. Published reports, I am so excited that finally, we are putting out our first reentry report, which covers, the state of reentry right now in Hawaii. This report, took a long time to complete. It was an incredible amount of work done by our previous reentry oversight specialist, Kara Campagna, who we're so grateful for. She'll actually be reporting on that today in our next agenda item. So I will skip past that, but the report is available on our website. I highly recommend you give it a look. We're very, very excited about this one. For events attended, myself and also the jail oversight specialist had attended a jail and prison oversight forum. This was hosted by the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. And again, in the report, it includes some information of what happened in these events. Our jail oversight specialist also attended a NACOL webinar on digital video evidence, identifying technical challenges and limitations, preparing himself for looking at all those cameras throughout the jails and probably the prisons. And then our reentry oversight specialist attended the 2025 Pu'uhonua Summit. We really appreciate the invite to that. I wish I could have attended as well, but we're glad that our reentry oversight specialist got to join. And then it covers our past meeting, which again, all of our meeting information, agenda, previous recordings, minutes is all available on the website. And that is it for my report.
Any comments, commissioners?
Public testimony
You're
first and then comments from commissioners.
Public testimony? Yes, Kat.
I just read through everything. That report rocks. It is so soulful and caring about the people in the care and custody of the state. I encourage everybody to read that report. Great job. Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioners?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Next agenda item? Yeah.
All right, and so now, I am so excited, to bring back our Kara Campagna, who has joined us today to, present all the work that she did on this huge reentry report. Yeah. So I'm gonna move out of my seat and so she can present this report to all of you. And again, Kara, we really cannot thank you enough for all of your work, everything you've done for the commission, and we're thrilled to have you back.
Thank you. You missed me. South Florida.
We kept it warm for you.
Getting a water.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. It's good to be back and also odd at the same time. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it wasn't really that long ago. So good morning to the commissioners, Kristen, George, the new team, and everyone watching. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present on this report today. This is the commission's inaugural reentry report, which Kristen mentioned. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and speak about it. To start, I just want to say that George, whenever you're ready, the slide can go up. There's a lot of people to thank for this report, and I want to briefly start by thanking, of course, Kristen and George for all of their efforts on the report. And actually, I also really want to thank the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, their leadership team, particularly Sana and Christy, who's the director of the reentry office. They were very helpful, and we just had a great working relationship throughout this report. So I want to thank them. Also, the Hawaii Paroling Authority, Jean and Corey were very helpful. And then basically everyone else, because this report was a group effort and so many others contributed to it. So this report is really the result of a collective effort. And the next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to start by presencing the mandate of the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission, and I want to show how this report relates to the mandate. So the first section of the mandate, overseeing the state's correctional system, investigating complaints, and facilitating the transition to a rehabilitative and therapeutic model. Secondly, establishing maximum population limits for each facility and corresponding policies. Third, working with DCR in monitoring and reviewing the comprehensive offender reentry program. And then fourth, ensuring that the reentry system is working properly to provide timely release at minimums. So while this report directly addresses subsection 3 and 4 here, it also generally relates to the transition to a therapeutic model of corrections. All right, some background for the report. So this report is the results of, this was a data and people-driven report, and also took into account many different perspectives. It's the result of facility tours, stakeholder engagements, lots of talk stories, lots of information gathering, data requests to corrections, DCR, and also HPA, a whole lot of research, and then also a report review process. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I want to start by generally setting the framework for the report and then also this presentation. So conceptually, there are 3 key elements of systemic change. So to successfully transform any system, here are the fundamental elements that must be in place. So first, define a clear vision for the desired future. And you'll see that throughout this report termed as where we're going. Secondly, understanding the current state, and that's where we are. And then finally, this third section is realizing the vision. And this is really bridging the gap between where we are and where we're going. So this report and presentation do just that. So this first section I'm going to go through will highlight where we're going. And this presents the vision for the future of corrections and reentry in Hawaii. Section 2 is where we are, and that's the current state of the reentry system. And then section 3, how to get there. And that provides a roadmap, and that's really the recommendation section. Okay, next slide, George. Okay, so here's that section 1 I was just talking about. So we'll begin by examining Hawaii's existing vision for corrections and rehabilitation. And this is guided by key documents that already exist. We did not create anything. This is really just a pulling together of what's already in place. Next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go through each of these foundational documents that create the vision for corrections and rehabilitation in Hawaii. So first is HRS Chapter 353H. That is the Comprehensive Reentry System Statute. I will be going over that throughout this report. And then 353L, that is the Commission Statute that I just presenced before. Also, we have Act 278 of 2022, and that is the transition from the department, or transition to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So this act restructured Hawaii's correctional system, separating public safety into DCR and also law enforcement. So ultimately separating the law enforcement and corrections functions. Then there's also Senate and House resolutions that support reentry and rehabilitation. I'm going to dive more into those throughout this report, but they're related to identification, different reentry services, and also culturally based programs. And Executive Order number 2409. So this is Governor Green's executive order declaring Hawaii a trauma-informed state. What I want to add about this is in this executive order, Governor Green mentions ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. And why I highlight that is because in the executive order, Governor Green states that in Hawaii, the prevalence of ACEs is higher than in other states. And I want to highlight even further that research continues to demonstrate that adverse childhood experiences and trauma, the rates of that among people who are incarcerated are even higher. So this executive order is really important for corrections, as it requires all executive departments to integrate these trauma-informed principles and practices. Okay, so I'm gonna make this really brief, even though it's hard for me. House Concurrent Resolution 85 Task Force Report. Kristen knows how much I love this report. I'm sure Alec and Kimmy already do too. But this report laid the groundwork for a new era of corrections in Hawaii. And I want to briefly highlight the guiding principles from the report. Focus on the root cause of crime, not just the symptoms. Reaffirm each person's inherent humanity and continuity of citizenship through incarceration or loss of liberty. And focus on accountability and rehabilitation instead of retribution. And this directly informs Hawaii's transition to a rehabilitative model, also is the basis of the commission's work. And I don't know if Bob's on here, but Bob was the vice chair of this task force. And it's really fantastic. If you haven't read it, you should. If you've read it, read it again. And I'll leave it at that.
And it's on our website.
It's on the commission's website. Okay, and then finally, the Native Hawaiian cultural and healing practices. This is the Native Hawaiian Justice Task Force report. As we all know, Native Hawaiians are disproportionately represented in the correctional system here in Hawaii. And I wanted to include a quote from this task force report. Native Hawaiians have suffered from severe intergenerational, historical, and political trauma. Any effort to reduce the number of Native Hawaiians who come in contact with the criminal justice system must include a multi-pronged approach to address this trauma. And so you'll see that informs some of the recommendations in this report. So pulling this all together, we don't need to create a new vision or a new document for corrections, rehabilitation, reentry in the state of Hawaii. The vision is here. It's established in these foundational documents, and now the next step is to realize the vision. Okay, so we talked about section 1, which is where we're going. Check that off the list. We have a fantastic vision. Now, section 2 is going to relate to the current state of reentry in Hawaii, and this is where we are now. So to evaluate the current state of reentry, we looked at DCR's compliance with Hawaii Revised Statute 353H, that's the reentry statute. We also looked at progress and outcomes stemming from House and Senate resolutions, along with programming information, and then there was an additional request to DCR and HPA around parole releases. So that's where the information in this section comes from. So I ask you to hang in there because the first few sections of this statute are a little dense, but if we can get through the first few, it will be smooth sailing. So this first section here, 2.5, is about the reentry office. And this subsection of the statute establishes a central reentry office within DCR to develop and implement a comprehensive reentry system. So there are many subsections, there are many parts to this, but I'm just gonna do some of I'm just gonna highlight some of the main findings from this section. And if you really wanna read more, they're all outlined thoroughly in the report. So one of the main findings here is that the Reentry Coordination Office is critically understaffed. This statute is very well written. It's very thoughtful, and it really provides so many important aspects of reentry, and the staffing has to be there to implement it. So at the time that we wrote this report, 1 of 4 positions in the Reentry Coordination Office were full. So it is absolutely impossible for a single person to manage statewide reentry efforts. That's it, especially with the breadth and depth of reentry required here in Hawaii. And also in the structure of the reentry office, there's no direct reports from the facility level. So of course, there are case managers who are doing reentry functions, but they don't report directly to the reentry side or the reentry coordination office. So there's no direct link between the central office and on the ground work at the facilities. Okay, so that's point one. Secondly, the reentry plans here that were reviewed, they're just too brief and don't sufficiently address the reentry needs of people in custody. There's very limited resources in jail for reentry. And that's really important because there's so many jail releases, and it's also a way to stop cycles of incarceration is to provide services upon jail release. So that's problematic. And then also there's a lot of challenges connecting people in custody with resources in the community. What we are often finding is there are people in custody who need resources. There are resources available, but there's no bridge or link to bring them together. Okay, next slide. This next section mandates the creation of a comprehensive reentry system. And so the department has published a comprehensive offender reentry plan, and this was published in 2019. What I want to note is that there are strong guiding principles, strong goals, and action steps and performance measures included in this comprehensive offender reentry program. But what we find is that the plan isn't consistently translating into action at the facility level. So, and also, the plan hasn't been updated since 2019, which is problematic because of that transition we talked about from the Department of Public Safety to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, which has a new purpose. So I'll talk about this in the recommendations, but just highlighting that there. Okay, and two other points here. The programs lack independent evaluation, making it really difficult to assess whether they're effective. And there are areas of this subsection that DCR is in compliance with, and I want to highlight them. Some of them here, risk assessments, transitional programs, and partnerships. There is compliance in some areas of this statute. Okay, next slide, George. Is everybody still with me? Haven't lost anybody yet? George is still awake? Okay. Okay, so these next 4 subsections are very specific. So in model programs, it's very clear what the legislature asked for here. It requires structured model programs designed to reduce recidivism through highly skilled staff, individualized case management, life skills development, and then family support and strong community partnerships. So DCR provided a list in response to this. And while they provided programs that are helpful for reentry, they don't relate to these specific requirements from the legislature for this model program statute. Okay, next slide. Okay, this section is about children of incarcerated parents and families, and it underscores the critical importance of preserving family relationships between incarcerated parents and their children. And so the components of this subsection are not currently being met because there are no policies ensuring parents are placed in facilities based on the best interests of the child or to maintain parent-child contact, and that's what's required in this statute, policies to do so. And also there's no research on the effects of incarceration on children, which again is required in the statute. Okay. Employment. Okay, this highlights, of course, the critical role employment plays in successful reentry. And DCR has indicated that currently there's no collaboration with the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations or the Department of Taxation as required in the statute. This is related to training for people in custody or people being released for employment training, and also tax incentives for employers who hire formerly incarcerated individuals. Okay. All right, this next section, this is return of individuals in out-of-state custody. So this requires DCR to bring people in custody back from out-of-state facilities here that's saguaro in Arizona at least 1 year before their parole or release date. And the intention is to facilitate reentry preparation. So in this statute, there's a reporting requirement, which DCR is meeting the reporting requirement, but the intent of the statute is not being fulfilled here. So we reviewed data from November of 2022 to November of 2023. And during this timeframe, 47% of people in custody returned to Hawaii within the statutorily required 1 year timeframe. Yet 53% of people in custody did not return to Hawaii within this same statutorily required timeframe. Next slide. So here is an outline of the reasons why people in custody were not returned. And so this includes program noncompliance, severe misconduct within the past 18 months, detainers that restrict minimum custody housing, and refusal to participate in work furlough programs. So we have some recommendations related to this, but I just want to highlight this part here. Okay. Performance indicator reporting. So this section requires DCR to develop performance indicators related to specific areas the legislature required. So performance indicators for recidivism, for staff turnover, for assault on staff, and for improving departmental efficiencies. And also this statute just includes specific key performance indicators to track. So overall, our findings here are that compliance with this subsection varied. Some metrics are being reported on while others are missing and incomplete. In terms of the incomplete data, there are no clear performance indicators in the outlined areas in terms of recidivism, staff turnover, assault on staff, and overall departmental efficiencies. And then there are some concerning trends when reviewing the data that I want to highlight here. Low completion rates for career and technical education programs, which range between 55 and 57%, and also limited access to restorative justice circles, which is also a reporting requirement from this statute. One last thing to highlight here, DCR did review this report and responded, and in their response, they committed to updating their reporting requirements to align with this statute. Okay. Subsection 9 here. These are additional annual reporting requirements. So these are related to key performance indicators tracking programs. And the key findings here are there are missing program data in reporting. What's required is program success rates, program completion rates, admission criteria, and that isn't being reported on. And the gaps in this data prevent really a full assessment of programs. Like, we don't know how we're doing. Are they working? Are they not? So this data is really imperative for that. And again, here, DCR indicated that they will be updating to comply with this statute. Okay, 2 more sections to this reentry statute. So here, 31, this allows DCR to authorize service contracts in 27 different categories listed and designed by the legislatures and the drafters of this legislation related to reentry programs and services. And currently 5 of the 27 categories are, DCR has contracts for currently 5 of the 27 categories. Good. All right. Reentry. Okay, this is for identification documents. So overall, the goal of this section is to ensure people in custody receive necessary IDs before release and that they are aware of assistance available. First, I want to acknowledge that I know that DCR's work with DMV has been involved, and it involves a lot of different people and so many efforts on there. This has been a journey, I know, from many people I've spoken to, and I think all agree more is needed here in terms of IDs. So the main components of this statute are not being met. Again, they're specific requirements related to identification and, basically allowing people in custody to know that there's assistance available, and also some timing requirements for people on work furlough or community placement. So, okay, a few more parts to this. Okay, so we're still in this number 2, where are we, the current state of reentry? So I'm just gonna go through these House and Senate concurrent resolutions, and then a few program updates, and then we'll move on to the final section of the presentation. So the legislature has passed several resolutions aimed at improving reentry outcomes, ID provision, cultural programs, and I'm going to briefly go through them. So Senate Resolution 82 and Senate Resolution 84 from 2001 and 2023, they are related to identification. So SR 82 is about data requirements and reporting requirements, and DCR is fully compliant with these reporting requirements. SR 84, this requests the Department of Public Safety to correct issues and dismantle barriers relating to the provision of civil ID documents. What is reported here is that since 2022, only 150 IDs were issued by DCR Public Safety and only 32 at no cost. And this low number really indicates that there are still issues and barriers in obtaining identification. Now, the next 2 I want to cover relate to cultural and faith-based programs.